Hey, Joel from Taylor Designs here. Welcome to my first video where today we're going to be making a bowl out of a log that I had lying around. Something I always like to do as I begin a new project is to clean my workspace. As you can see here, I'm walking around with the dust extraction and I'm cleaning up all the sawdust from the last thing I've made. And once we've done that, we'll get into the project.
Today I'm going to be experimenting with a chunk of wood that I've got lying around. See if I can turn it into a bowl or something. So we're going to start chucking the center in, chucking on the lathe and see how we get.
So I started by chucking on the lathe to start rounding out the log, but you could see that it was quite unbalanced as we got into that.
Hectic. Alright, so we're just starting to get somewhere. I'm sweating bullets, it's hot here in Australia. I'm starting to round out the edges a bit and starting to flow a bit nicer as we go on around. Got some big cavities here, so I'm not sure how we can use those, but we'll see what we can do with them. So, sort of finished up rounding out the old log here. Flattened off the top quite a bit. Now I'm going to start drawing it in back towards the bottom of the bowl here and start to create that shape and see how we go.
At this point here, I decided that the log was too large for one bowl, so I've begun cutting the bowl back and I've left a large section at the bottom for which I could create a second bowl out of the same log. After changing the tool to a sharper point, I began cutting back into the log to begin to separate the two pieces and start refining the shape of that bowl.
So, I've been rounding out this log for a little while now, and there's two serious cavities we've found. So you got this main one here on top which travels the whole way through. So I was planning to make the bowl here on this side, but I don't know if that's going to work given this travels a lot further than I thought initially. And then on the other side we have this one here, which I think would be very interesting to have half a bowl. So I don't think that's going to work.
Although I didn't quite think the top half of the log would work for a bowl, I decided to commit to it anyways and see how far I could get and see if I could produce something cool, even if it was impractical. I was also planning on using the bottom half of the log as a secondary project where I could produce a bowl that would be slightly more practical and usable. After separating the log into two pieces, I put the wood back onto the lathe so that I could begin to create that shape and refine it even further. On the lathe, I carved out a mortise so that I could put the bowl on the other way using the chuck. I also used my router here just to clean out the hole as there was a bit left from the center. I remembered after doing this that I had a faceplate and I could have just screwed the bowl into the lathe and it would have been a lot easier and probably more stable, but here we are.
I had to stop yesterday because we ran out of time, but we're gonna get back into it. Gonna keep hollowing out this bad boy here. See if we can turn it into some sort of bowl with a giant hole in the side, which could be interesting. See what happens. And we have our second blank from the same, which I will turn into a bowl after the first one. See how that goes. Let's do it.
After coming back the next day, we always have to start with the first step, which is grabbing the vacuum and cleaning up all of yesterday's sawdust. After refining the outside shape of the bowl, I began to sand. I started with 80 grit and worked my way up to 120 and then 240. As you can see here, I was having issues with the holes bouncing back against my hand as I was trying to apply pressure with the sandpaper. So I did have a puddle pop stick there to try and take some of the force, which worked alright.
Okay. Just had a good go at that outside now. Created another hole for the chuck to go in so I can carve out the center. It's going to be interesting to see if any of this wood stays on it and how much of it goes flying at me. So I'm going to chuck this back on the lathe. I'm going to keep having a go at it.
At this point here, I was quite happy with the shape of the bowl and how it was coming together. So after this, I began to start sanding. I followed the same process as before, starting with 80 grit and then working up to 120 and 240. Although as I was sanding here, I noticed a series of grooves along the inside which I wasn't happy with. And so I did end up getting the tools back out and having another go. In hindsight, this was a big mistake, as we're about to see. I began to try and carve down those screws, but unfortunately, as you can hear right there, a piece flew off, and you can see it there in the bottom left as well.
That's a bit disappointing. The whole side has just come off. And it was looking very cool. I was keen to sand and finish this up. But she's broken. I don't think I would be able to get this together in any fashion that was worth using, given it already had a massive chunk in the side. So, it was already broken. So, we're gonna get to work on this bad boy.